adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. We're going to build on that lesson. You know, this time, this period when you're a teenager, some of these kids that are younger, they haven't hit it yet, but they will, is a time when young people are planning changes in their life. Where are you going? What direction are you going to go? What are you going to study if you go on to higher education? What kind of job are you going to have? Are you going to go into some professional capacity? What are you going to do? And we're not even talking about the other sex. You know, you suddenly, I know you guys all deny it, or at least some of you do, you suddenly start looking at the girls or the boys, as the case may be, and giving some thought to that. So there's times when this is a period of time when this is happening. The hormones are wild and woolly, and you're trying to figure things out. You realize that changes are coming, and most of these can be a challenge to your faith, and you need to realize that. You're going to undergo a challenge. That's why that passage, resist steadfast in the faith. It's important to stay the course, to stay rock solid on some of the things you learned when you're younger and are learning now. To remember the true values, not let anybody push you off of them. You have a need for a proper perspective in life. That's really hard for a teenager to get. That proper perspective. He's being pushed into all sorts of perspectives, all sorts of ways. And in our society that seems to be growing so evil, there's a need for soberness. Now, soberness, a lot of people associate that with alcohol. That's really not what the Bible's talking about when it talks about soberness. It talks about staying on an even keel. Sometimes it's almost impossible for a young person not to go high and down to the depths of lowness. The other day, one of my grandchildren was actually weeping because they didn't get moved up to the JV team. Weeping? JV? Come on. What's the problem? And on the other hand, there's this wild exuberance. Have you ever seen anybody, when they first start talking sweet to a girl? And my goodness, they're just happy as a lark dancing around. These days, they're playing on their phone endlessly, texting back and forth. It needs to be a soberness. Even out a little bit. There needs to be a calm. You need to be able to collect yourself. It's so easy to run off the cliff in despair or run off the cliff in excitement. And you need to stay collected. You need to stay centered and calm. Yes, there's excitement. Yes, there's sadness. There's some of the dreams you have are not going to work out. You probably are not going to be an NBA star. There's not many of them that are, and none of you are tall enough. Sorry. It's just the way it is. But there's a lot to do in life, and you can do it. You need to be vigilant. You need to be aware that at this young age, it seems like there's nothing going to go against you. But you need to be on your guard. You need to be alert. In Ephesians 5 and verse 14, wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. Keep your eyes open. Don't just swallow everything that everybody says. Don't just go along with everything your friends suggest because it looks like fun and they're good friends. Pay attention. Redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. And so, as we read there in 1 Peter 5, you need to be able to withstand the devil, even as a teenager. And in steadfast faith, so that your faith doesn't fail. In Hebrews 10, verse 35 beginning, cast not away, therefore, your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward. You know, your parents and your Bible class teachers have been teaching you about so many of those lessons of courage and faith in the Old Testament, right? I think Mrs. Welch was teaching about Moses this morning. Didn't you tell me that's what you're going to talk about? No? Did I not pay attention to you again? Anyway, it was one of the Old Testament characters, which I have forgotten. But anyway, your teachers are doing that. I've seen their lessons. I know what they're teaching you. And you're learning. You know, when you get to be a teenager, don't forget all that. Don't forget it all. It's being taught to you, and the Lord put it there and says it's an example for you. It wasn't just for them, it's an example. These are examples for you to use in life. And so when you become a teenager, don't cast away your confidence, which hath great recompense of reward, for ye have need of patience. Whew! That is the hardest thing in the world for teenagers to learn. Be patient. We all want it right now, and we want it immediately. We want our freedom. We want when we get a job, we want a great job. We want to be intelligent all the way. We want to make great grades constantly. You have need of patience, that after you've done the will of God, you might receive the promise. This may take a little time. You're going to be a teenager for 8 years? It may take a little time to get beyond that. Yet a little while, and he that shall come will come and will not tarry. Now the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. If you go in there and you start forgetting those lessons you learned in those Bible classes and in your Bible studies at home, if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. We are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul. In addition, you need to realize that the devil, he knows when you're most vulnerable. He knows this. And he is going to seek to devour and destroy you early. He's not going to wait until you're 73 years old. He's going to try to do it early, because that's when you're most vulnerable. You're not settled. You haven't figured everything out just yet. And you're apt to forget. And you're impatient. So he says you shouldn't be ignorant of his devices. What are his devices? You know, in 2 Corinthians 2, verse 8, wherefore I beseech you that you would confirm your love toward him. This was a man who had sinned and had repented of his sin. For to this end also did I write, that I might know the proof of you, whether ye be obedient in all things. To whom ye forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything to whom I forgave it, for your sakes forgave I it in the person of Christ, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Oh my. What happens when it fails? What happens when you want to go to USC and your parents have paid $1 million to bribe your way onto the rowing team? Suddenly it hits the news and your folks are going to jail and you're not going to USC anymore. And they put out, I read today that they put out a flyer that said that the crew team was accepting applications, no experience necessary. But that's just an aside for something I saw in the news today. What happens when that falls apart on you? Or your girlfriend dumps you for another guy, of all things? Oh, you just collapse. We are not ignorant of his devices, or you fail. You're taking a course in school and you just flat flunk it. It's harder to think of, and all the people around you seem smart and they know what they're doing. And my goodness, I wanted to be a brain surgeon. What am I going to do now? You need to be aware of the devices of Satan, that he may be using this opportunity in your discouragement, or on the other hand, your elation, to deal with you. He says that the servants of Satan, this is another of his devices in 2 Corinthians 11, in verse 15. It is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Satan's ministers, angels, are transformed into ministers of righteousness. It seems they're good folks. So many young people in this church have forgotten their lessons. And so they get hooked up with some other church that isn't teaching the truth, and it's a truth they knew about, they've turned their back on, because that other church seemed so friendly and so nice, and the preacher was so good, and the service was woohoo! It was uplifting. Whereas just old John, who led singing tonight? David did. It was just David leading the singing and John preaching. And there wasn't any 10-piece band, and there wasn't a choir. And there wasn't any pyrotechnics. There wasn't any puppet show. There wasn't any play. There was no dancing girls. Some of them do have dancing girls, by the way. So that old stuff they learned as a kid seems boring. Servants are often dressed in piety. These are good people over here at this other church. He walks about as a roaring lion. You know, a lion just sort of, if you ever watched a cat sneak up on a mouse, just sneaks up until right at the last boom, you can hear the bones crack. And that may be the way it is with you. You thought all was well, and suddenly your life is completely different than it was before. He's an adversary, a challenger, a disputer. In 1 Corinthians 1 and verse 20, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? You know, so many people are arguing against Christianity and arguing against religion. The more you go higher in higher education, the more you're going to hear that. They're going to ridicule your religion. Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? Now let me tell you, if you understand clearly that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, rose from the dead, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to ridicule that simple fact. Can you hang on to it? If you can hang on to that, you can get rid of most of the devices of Satan. What about sin, the deceitfulness of sin? Exhort one another daily while it's called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. And so some young boy, some young girl tries to convince you how wonderful drugs are. Why, my goodness, they're thinking about legalizing marijuana in many states. And it's supposed to be good for your health. And, you know, there's these other things, they just are illegal. Why, alcohol is legal. What's wrong with these other drugs? You're going to hear that over and over again from your friends, from the people you know. And sooner or later, there's a deceitful. It's on the TV. It's in the programs we watch. We get, they outlawed. How ridiculous to not sell booze on Sunday. So we sell it now. How ridiculous not to put hard liquor in the ads on the TV. So we advertise all sorts of booze on the television. Now it's in all the shows. There's homosexuals in virtually every program you choose to watch. Not in any critical way. The deceitfulness of sin, it's creeping up on you. Are you aware of his devices? It's hard to think that, why, the TV would not encourage me to sin. Oh, really? Well, let's watch the Victoria's Secret program. Let's watch the awards programs where all these women traipse in trying to show as much skin as they possibly can. Let's listen to the singers in skimpy clothing. The deceitfulness of sin. And some people who are pulling you this way, they're going to speak great swelling words of vanity. So your girlfriend is going to tell you what a great guy you are. What a great kisser you are. Let me tell you what. It's 4 lips. You mash them together. It's a kiss. There's not a lot of artistry to that. But she's going to tell, oh, you do it different than everybody else. Oh, really? When they speak great swelling words of vanity, and you're going to try to do the same thing. Here's a plain Jane girl you grew up with. Perhaps you went all the way through grade school with her, and you're going to start telling her how pretty she is. Ooh, you're just so pretty. Oh, my goodness. And once in a while, you're going to use the word, oh, how sexy you look. Great swelling words of vanity. They allure through the lusts of the flesh, through much wantonness, those that were clean escaped from them who live in error. The devil's trying to devour you. And when you're a teenager, it is so appealing. It's been a long time since anybody ever said to me, John, you're so handsome. What a rascal you are. What a treat it must be to be around you. My wife doesn't do that much anymore. She's smelled me on a bad day. And so she knows. I think she loves me. But there's not those great swelling words of vanity alluring through the lust of the flesh anymore. We love one another. But hey, at a certain point, you're going to grow beyond that. And you're going to realize there's more to life than that. But as a teenager, you're not really sure of that. But in addition, there's special situations that young people find themselves in. The serious student, if you're trying to do a good job in school, you find a lot of pressure on your time. Lots of homework. Unless you're going to some PUD school that won't give you any homework and a poor education, you're going to have lots of homework. You're going to be applying yourself. You're going to be taking advanced placement classes where you can qualify for them. You're going to be trying to do your dead level best, and that takes time, and it's a push. That pressure on your time can be a terrible thing. Look with me in Luke 8. That which fell among thorns are they which, when they have heard, go forth and are choked with cares and riches and pleasures of this life, and bring no fruit to perfection. Because at night, we can get on the computer. We can play computer games. We can talk with all our friends. We can go out to various events. We can hit the restaurants. And on it goes. It's a lot of time pressure. In 2 Timothy 2 and verse 22, listen to this. He was saying this to Timothy, the young man. Flee also youthful lusts. It's an attack on you as a young person. But follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. You're going to find an increased challenge to the Bible, whether it's true. A lot of your friends are going to ridicule it. And then there's that peer pressure. You know about peer pressure. In 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. You know, some people can't pick a good friend. They don't know the difference. Some people don't have that many friends, and so they're just about willing to accept anybody that'll say howdy to them, never realizing that some of their friends are going to misuse them, pull and push them in a direction they really shouldn't go. Sports. How much sports can you play? It's going to push you. You're going to have to go to all those practices, play all those games. You're going to be tired, and then you're going to have to do your homework as well. Don't even get me started about phones. Okay, I'm a fuddy-duddy. But do you kids really need a phone that bad? I see kids all the time who can't look up, who can't converse, but they're playing games on there, texting their friends back and forth, and have lost the ability to talk. There's something wrong. Parents, maybe you ought to slow down on that just a little bit and see to it that your child talks, so that you know what's going on in his life. Because I know a lot of parents said, oh, I wouldn't check on him. I'm not going to look on his phone. I'm not going to see what he's talking about. Well, how do you know what's going on in his life? You don't. You just gave him the secret hiding place that he can use all day long and all night. Think about this. Computers, same way. All of it's a pressure. There's a laxity of morals in our society. And as you work, because you probably are going to get a job somewhere as you go along in your teenage years, there's money. I always encouraged, I used to teach school back a million years ago, and I think there are classes in most high schools now that try to teach this. But I insisted, I was teaching, I think, 9th grade, and I insisted that my kids go home and ask their mom and dad how much it took to live. Have a house or an apartment, a car, spending money, food, insurance. Because I kept seeing kids who would be ready to drop out of school because, got to remember, my day was a long time ago, where they were going to make $2 an hour. Because they had fallen in love with some other girl who made $2 an hour. And they were going to make a life together. I said, think about this. Go ask mom and dad how much it costs to live. And you might want to stay in school for a little while and develop some skills and abilities so that you understand what it costs. Because it can be pricey. And believe me, it hadn't gotten any cheaper since I was teaching school. But there's going to be more money. You're going to have cash. You're going to have independence sooner or later. How old are you boys, Raymond? 15? I don't know if you knew this, but in Indiana, when they're 16, they can drive a car, Kevin. Isn't that a scary thought? You've seen drivers that are 16 and they're not the world's best drivers, I bet, out there. And adults. That's true. That's true. But there it is. My goodness, Jonathan back there is 15. He's going to be, Dave, he's going to be driving next year. Jonathan, you got a lot of talking to do, buddy. But you're going to grow up. I mean, you may not get a license just the day you turn 16, and you may not get a car. I still remember my daughter who got a license, I think when she was 16, right? And I told her, I said, okay, don't go anywhere much. And she was dying to go down to Bill Whitaker's house and see his son, Mark. They were friends. She drove down there. I think on the second day she could drive. First day she could drive. Gloria's mother's car, we let her have that, an old car. And driving out of Bill Whitaker's driveway, she said that bush just leaped out right in the way of her. And there were several occasions that did one fender. It sort of rounded that one off. And I don't know if Bill's bush was ever the same. But then just a few weeks later, she called me, Dad. I said, what? Well, I didn't see that stop sign. And the other fender's gone too on this car. And I said, did you hit somebody? Yeah. And he said, what shall I do? I said, number one, ask him how much money he wants. Is he hurt? That was the first question. No, he's fine, but I mashed his car. How much money does he want? I'll be right over there with a check. And so he told her, and that was the second fender. I think there was a third fender. That car was so streamlined when she got through with it. But this is going to be you guys soon. But there's going to be an independence. Hey, you can go anywhere in the city. You're free if you can find your way back home. Justin eventually managed it. Justin was, I don't know if he's gotten better, but he was spatially challenged. Worked for me a little bit, and we sent him over, said, go down to 38th Street and go over to, the church maybe. Justin called me from Shadeland. He said, this doesn't look like where I need to be. I said, no, you turn east. GPS was his best friend, let me just tell you. But you're going to be free to do those things and make those mistakes. You're going to have to be careful with it. Be a little sober. And not use that independence and money improperly in your life. There's going to be an increasing lack of family restraint. Mom and Dad are not going to be there all the time. There's going to be a lack of social restraint. You'll be among new people. Some of those old friends might have served as a little bit of calming effect on you. They know you. And there's going to be, the church folks here, they're not going to be there very often. And that seems like it sets you free. But it doesn't. And you need to realize what the reality of those situations are. Finally, Matthew 6 and verse 33 says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all those things you're worried about will be added to you. Your clothes, your money, your future. It's out there. You just have to be a little patient and wait for it. You need to first give yourself to the Lord as a young man. Quit waiting. It's time to make the commitment. Dear Paul is bragging on the Macedonians and says, this they did not as we hoped, but first gave their own selves to the Lord and unto us by the will of God. And finally this evening, go back to 1 Peter 5, and this time let's look at verse 10. He says, the God of all grace, who hath called us into his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, that's mature, establish, anchor you, so you're not worried anymore, strengthen you, that's spiritually. I see so many kids trying to build up their muscles. There's another strength that you need to be working on just as hard as you do your muscles, maybe harder. Settle you so that you can live a life of sober godliness. If you're here tonight and are not a Christian, now's the time. Get started. Come while we stand and sing.